And welcome back, it's JWalter here. As you guys all know, we need a lot more houses to be built in order to cool off this housing market. We obviously need a lot more supply and a lot less demand in order to cool off home prices. So I want to share a newer article with you guys. This is according to the National Association of Realtors. They shared the number of permits that have been pulled for multifamily units as well as single family houses. So obviously we need a lot more single family houses to be built in order to cool off this housing market, and also for home buyers to have more options for them, right? But what we're seeing right now is that builders have become very bearish regarding their housing market because they have increased multifamily permits and they have decreased single family permits. So that's the topic of today's video. Let me share the actual article itself right here. This is on the National Association of Home Builders website, or the NAHB. And the headline reads the following: multifamily permits strong at the end of the first quarter of 2022. And by the way, a multifamily property is 2 units or more. A single family home is obviously 1 unit. So when we're talking about multifamily, we're talking about builders constructing houses that are at least 2 units or more per building. And I want to bring this to your attention because builders right now are pulling permits much more so for multifamily properties versus single family properties. So it says here, over the first 3 months of 2022, which is obviously the first quarter of 2022, the total number of single family permits only increased 0.8% since March of 2021. So have a look at this graphic here, because builders right now are really more bullish regarding multifamily properties and not so much single family houses. And this is because all the headwinds that builders are facing for single family houses, and also home buyers as well, with record high home prices and of course very elevated mortgage rates as well. So anyways, here's the number of permits pulled. These are obviously for residential over the last 12 months. So as you can see here, just look at the red bars here. This is a total permits pulled for single family houses and multifamily across the United States here. So this is for single family houses, only increased by 0.8% from Q1 of 2021. In stark contrast though, the percent increase for multifamily permits pulled, which as you see right here, is 17.1% increase. So the amount of permits that have been pulled from Q1 2021 to Q1 2022 has increased by 17.1% for multifamily, and only increased by less than 1% for single family houses. So as you can see here, for single family houses, we only had the South have an increase in the number of permits pulled for single family homes. In stark contrast though, every single one of the 4 major regions in the US had a big increase by double digits compared to 1 year ago for multifamily permits pulled. And as you can see here, single family permits declined in 3 out of the 4 regions. In stark contrast, multifamily permits posted double-digit increases in all major regions. I mean, look at the Midwest, an increase by 41.5% for multifamily permits pulled. Also, according to this article here, between March 2021 year to date and March 2020 year to date, in other words, Q1 of 2021 versus Q1 2022, only 18 states and the District of Columbia saw growth in single family permits issued. Therefore, 32 states reported a decline in single family permits during this time frame. So here's how each of the states fared regarding the share of permits pulled for single family houses. So states in red posted a decrease in permits pulled for single family houses versus 1 year ago. In stark contrast, in green here, that's a growth rate of over 0.8% from 1 year ago. As you can see here, a lot of the states here in the West, and also Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, had increases in permits pulled for single family houses. And also, by the way, if you're looking to buy a brand new house, have a look at permits pulled in Montana and this is Wyoming. In Montana, it increased by 44.6% compared to a year ago, and in Wyoming, a 32.8% increase. In stark contrast, though, look at Washington, a decrease of 14.4% compared to Q1 2021, and also a big decrease also in North Dakota by 15.5%. In contrast, though, we saw increases in Texas by 8.4%, and also in Florida, an increase by 10.5%. In regards to multifamily permits, between March 2021 year to date and March 2022 year to date, 30 states recorded growth, while only 20 states and DC recorded a decline in multifamily permits. Indiana, by the way, led the pack with a sharp increase of 304.4% in multifamily permits compared to 1 year ago. And by the way, here are the top 10 metro areas in the US that issued the highest number of single-family permits. In other words, builders are very bullish in these housing markets for single-family properties here. So have a look at this here. Houston, Texas was number 1 on the list with the biggest increase of single-family permits, followed by Dallas, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, Atlanta, Georgia, and rounding out the top 5 was Austin, Texas. So of course, right now, builders are very bullish regarding building apartment buildings and not so much for single family houses. And this is because mortgage rates have increased approximately 2 percentage points thus far this year. And that further causes home buyers to put the brakes on buying brand new houses right now. I also found a very interesting article that I want to share. It was also on the National Association of Home Builders website. They commented regarding how the Fed is going to be impacting home buying demand, but it's not going to be helping the supply chain issues that builders are facing right now. So it says here, higher inflation in housing is due to a lack of rental and for sale inventory and cost growth for building materials, lots, and labor. I'm going to be sharing some stats regarding that here in just a little bit. Higher mortgage rates will not produce more lumber. In other words, the Fed is increasing the federal funds rate, and that has been causing mortgage rates to increase, but that's not going to produce more lumber, of course, which of course would help home builders. A smaller balance sheet, meaning the Fed is going to be reducing their balance sheet of mortgage-backed securities and treasury bonds. A smaller balance sheet by the Fed will not increase the production of appliances and materials, of course. In short, while the Fed can cool the demand side of the economy, additional output on the supply side is required in order to tame the growth in costs that we see in housing and other sectors of the economy. And efficient regulatory policy in particular can help achieve this goal and fight inflation. So in other words, what the Fed is doing right now is to control inflation. They're trying to decrease demand. However, what they're doing right now, of course, is not helping on the supply side. So in regards to other headwinds that builders are facing right now is obviously due to sky-high building material costs as well. So this is another article on the National Association of Home Builders website. It says building materials prices move higher, up 19% year over year. So compared to 1 year ago, building materials are actually up 19.2% and have risen 35.6% since the start of this pandemic. And because of this, this is one reason why home prices or new home prices have also reached all-time record highs, because builders are paying for these higher costs for building houses, and of course they're passing on these costs to home buyers. On top of this, the price index of services used in home building, which include trade services, transportation, and warehousing, has climbed 13.3% at the start of this year. Year over year, the index has increased 18.1%, but look at that, 45.6% increase since the start of this pandemic. Meanwhile, prices for softwood lumber, which are seasonally adjusted, declined by 15.6% in April. Obviously, that's a positive sign because we want to see the cost of lumber to decrease greatly in order to give home builders more incentive to build more houses. And since reaching a low point in September 2021, though, prices have risen 60.4%. I also noticed that the commodity price for lumber right now is at $767.50. That's actually down quite a bit compared to the all-time record high that we saw in, when was that? In May 2021? Yeah, May 2021. We reached an all-time record high of just over $1,600. So at least we have come down quite a bit since then, but we have a long ways to go because pre-pandemic levels back in 2019, we were around $300 to $400, not $767. However, as you guys can see here, lumber prices have decreased 20.5% year to date. So some of you may be thinking that the increase in multifamily units is going to be for townhomes and condos that builders plan to sell. However, we're not really seeing that because when we look at the actual data, the vast majority of builders who are pulling permits or they are doing housing starts are for construction of apartment buildings to rent out. So here's the stats I want to share with you regarding that. This is on the US Census Bureau's website. I'll leave a link below for you guys so you guys can check this out. But have a look at this right here. So it says quarterly stats and completions by purpose and design. I like to look at the Excel file, which is this file right here. So when you open this up, look at this first tab. These are housing starts in the United States by purpose and design. These other tabs here are for different areas, the Northeast, the Midwest, etc., etc. So have a look at this first tab here. This is for, of course, housing starts by purpose and design. So for single family units, I really wish they would provide the purposes, whether it's going to be for sale or for rent. But for whatever reason, they don't provide that information for us. So in other words, have a look at multifamily instead. These are units in buildings with 2 units or more. In other words, multifamily properties. So have a look at this because these are, by the way, these are in thousands of units for multifamily. So we look at here, this is the fourth quarter 2021, the most recent stats we have for you guys. So total housing units or total number of units that have been started for multifamily was 120,000 for the fourth quarter of 2021. Take a look at this though. This is the biggest takeaway of today's video though, because this clearly shows that builders are really moving towards constructing apartment buildings to rent out. So out of the total 120,000 units, these again are housing starts for multifamily properties. 113,000 is for the purposes of renting out. Only 7,000 is being built for sale. On top of this, look at this. This is the number of units per building. So 106,000 out of the 120,000 is going for apartment buildings. So basically 20 units or more that they plan to rent out. So in other words, approximately 106,000 out of the 113,000 is going to be built for rent, and they're also going to be apartment buildings as well. So I actually did some calculations for you guys. So again, for the purposes of construction would be for rent, of course, 113,000 out of the 120,000 housing starts for Q4 of 2021, 94% of the total is for rent, not condos to buy. In other words, only 6% are being constructed to sell, and that represents 7,000 units in Q4 of 2021. We also see this for housing units completed as well. So approximately 91% were completed for rent and only 9% were for sale. So right now we have units completed for Q4 2021, 90,000 multifamily units, only 8,000 were for sale and 82,000 were for rent. On top of that, out of that 82,000, 79,000 were for 20 units or more. So comment below if you guys have any questions regarding that. I'll also leave a link below if you want to take a look at this table yourself. Hope you guys have an awesome day and look forward to seeing you on the next video.